Hi everybody, and welcome back to another chapter of the Accidental Expat Life. My name's Doug, and today we're going to talk about my move from my first school to my second school. But just to give you a quick recap of chapter 1, I was working in the golf business in Vancouver. I was being laid off for the winter months and couldn't decide what to do, so a friend of mine suggested I check out Korea. And I looked into it, a little bit expensive, but then I saw an advertisement for teaching English, taking a year off from the golf business, which I decided to do. And I ended up working at a school in an area called Namyangju, which was a little bit far away from Seoul, but it was an all right school. And then I was at a driving range one night, and a gentleman came up and started talking to me, introduced himself, told me that he had his own language school, and offered me a position. So I decided to take it. And chapter 2 is going to deal with that time at this new school in an area called Nowon, which is just on the outskirts of Seoul, but it's much closer to everything. It's closer to the buses and the subway and everything, so it makes access to the rest of the city a lot easier. So the area itself was really, really nice. A lot of restaurants, a lot of little bars and things, a lot of stores. So it was actually a very nice area. So the school that I was at was another language school, and it was probably, I think, on the third or fourth floor of a building. And it consisted of about 15 to 20 staff. There were both expat teachers and Korean teachers who were maybe Korean American or Korean Canadian, but whose English was pretty fluent. So that was the group that we had there, and the staff was amazing. The owners, and he had some relatives that were working there who were really, really nice. So the school was teaching more middle school students, a little bit older than my previous school. So the students were probably anywhere from 10 to 15 years old. And a lot of them are coming there after their regular school, because that's what they do in Korea. They go to different private lessons after their day at school. They'll go to music, they'll go to science, they'll go to history, and a lot of them obviously go to English because the parents feel that that was very important, and it was going to allow them to move a little bit further on to in their future with what they wanted to study, whether they wanted to study in Korea or whether they wanted to move abroad and go to university someplace else. So the school itself was quite good. And the students were excellent. So there were no problems. We went on the odd field trip and stuff like that. But the students were great, and it was a joy to work there. So the apartment that they put us up in, mine was really, really cool. It was like a mini loft apartment, I guess you could say. So you would climb up some stairs to go to the bed, and then it had a living area, it had a little kitchen, and it was really cool. It was about 5 minutes or so walk to the school, so it was quite close, so it was very convenient. And again, it was close to the subway, so if you wanted to go into the city, it was very easy to do that. So one of the amazing things that happened while I was living in Korea was that in 2002, Korea and Japan were hosting the FIFA World Cup, and it was just an incredible atmosphere. Korea did so well. They made it all the way to the semifinals, which I don't even think they were expected to make it out of the group stages. So it just got the whole country all excited, and it was just a phenomenal time to be there. I was lucky enough to get tickets to 2 of the games. The first game I went to was the group game, their third one, in which they had to beat Portugal in order to advance to the round of 16. And a friend of mine who I met, she worked for the Korean Football Association, was able to get me these tickets. She was going already, so I was able to take a friend of mine who I worked with at the school, and we just went and we had a great time. Korea winning obviously helped out, but either way, the atmosphere around the stadium was just incredible. We didn't sit down the entire game, and it was something that I'll never forget. I, to be honest, was never a soccer fan, and but when you see the games live, it's just totally different. So I actually fell in love with it, and then was lucky enough to get tickets to the semifinal game where they played Germany. Unfortunately, they ended up losing 1-0, but we got tickets. We were just at work and we were looking online and we saw 2 tickets available. So a friend of mine that I went to the first game with, we decided to take a chance. We bought them, and then we went and asked if we could get permission to leave work early in order to go to the game. So the management was nice enough to say that if we could find somebody to cover our classes, that we would be able to go. And fortunately, we were able to do that. And even though they lost the game, it was a great place to be, especially afterwards when you're walking around, you're leaving the stadium. People were still happy, they were still excited, and it was something that I'll never forget. It was just an event that I'll probably never have a chance to go to again, so I'm glad that I had the opportunity. So now it's coming towards the end of my contract, and once again I'm thinking to myself, what am I going to do? Am I going to go back to Canada? Am I going to stay in Korea? Am I going to travel somewhere else? And I was on the subway one day and there was an advertisement for a language school, but it was a different kind of a language school. It was a place that taught 1-to-1 or 1-to-4. There were no groups larger than that, and it was as if you were doing one-on-one tutoring with somebody. So it was a lot more relaxed. You didn't have to control a classroom or students who were misbehaving or anything like that. You were just 1-to-1, or I say 1-to-4, and you were meeting a variety of different people. So it was something that looked quite interesting, and I decided to go check it out. It was in an area called Gangnam, which I'm sure the majority have heard the song Gangnam Style. This was obviously before then, but it's an area of Seoul, probably very exclusive area of Seoul, very ritzy, a lot of expensive shops and everything like that. But it's an area I'd been to a few times before, so I knew it, and I knew that it was just an area that I would love to live in, because there were so many things to do. And I went to the school and interviewed for the job, and they ended up hiring me. So now it was letting Canada know, letting the Golf Association know in Canada that I was going to be taking a 3rd year off. And I thought deep down, am I ever going to go back to the golf business? Because I only had a few years left to complete my apprenticeship so I could move on. So that was another decision that I had to make during that time. But I decided that this opportunity looked very good, and it was an area that I wanted to be in. So I decided to take it up, and I'm glad I did. So you'll find out in the next chapter how it went.